It was the autumn of 1989. It was the World Series in October in San Francisco in Candlestick Park. It was a classic moment in history. Everybody was upbeat and enjoying. Everything seemed normal and yet right, super outstanding. Everybody was ready to go for a high moment in their lives because of the sports event I just mentioned. I was sitting at my desk in a building in downtown San Francisco, kind of near the Oakland Bay area. And I'm sitting there working. Everything was kind of quiet. I had my receptionist out in front. She was keeping track of things. And I glanced up, just looked up from the materials I was looking at on my desk. And I saw something I've never seen before. My bookcase had a lot of books in it. My bookcase began coming out from the wall. Slowly began coming out of the wall. And the books are tumbling out of the bookcase, obviously. And everything was like slow motion. It was like a movie that Salvador Dali would have produced or something along those lines. It wasn't normal. I've never seen anything like that before. And I was just stunned. And my receptionist broke the whole sound situation. She said, "Lynn, we're in an earthquake." This is how she communicated to me. She ran out of the hall, away from her desk, ran into my office, and just as if she were sliding into third base, it was really something. She slid right in underneath my desk. She was there just in a matter of seconds. So I kind of pulled myself together. I thought, wow, this is amazing, This is incredible. I can't believe this is actually happening. And I all of a sudden I'm hearing police sirens and fire engine sirens outside the building. So I ran outside the building, of course, and I had my outfit on, my suit and my tie and so on. Now the office was only 2 blocks away from the apartment building, and it was a tall, I think it was 20 stories, maybe a little taller. And that's where my wife and I were living at that time in 1989 it's called Jackson Square, by the way, that particular area. And it's very close, kind of overlooks, again, the Oakland Bay area, the Bay Area. So I was, of course, very frightened and worried. And so I take off running. I run down the steps and I run through this 2-block beautiful park, which every single day I would walk through, and I get a little cup of cappuccino from the little coffee cart, and elderly people were on this beautiful green slope, and they were doing Tai Chi. This was every day. Now, not now, of course, but at that time, every single day, I'd watch all these elderly people doing these incredible movements and so on. It was idyllic, and here I am running. People are screaming. There's fires everywhere. Of course, as I mentioned before, a lot of sirens, crashing. Some boutiques and small shops their big glass windows in front were breaking and falling to the ground. This is what I felt, and I saw everything around me everything was like slow motion as I was just pumping, right? Trying to get to this apartment building to find out. And I'm seeing all these buildings collapsing as I run, And I look to my left. It's one of those things where you just kind of glance like that as you're running to your goal, But when I looked over there, I saw the Embarcadero Freeway, which is a 2-tier freeway, right out in the middle of the ocean, or the middle of the bay, so to speak. And that's what the Embarcadero Freeway is. Very unusual, well designed, of course, but the top layer had broken based on the earthquake. The earthquake had moved it all around, and it was collapsing the top level. That meant that all the people in the cars underneath the primary level, So we're seeing all this, obviously the entire structure coming down on top of them, and it was just a chaotic, unbelievable sight. And again, I stopped for, seconds, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And people were crawling through the windows in their cars to escape certain death above them, coming down on them, had already happened around them, and crawling out of the windows, remember now, children and everything, and jumping into the ocean to escape this incredible experience and sure death, to be sure. And of course I'm running and running to find out, and I'm thinking, my wife is probably dead. My wife is probably dead. Everything's falling apart here, and I was really upset. I didn't know what I was going to see when I got there. And this was all taking place in super fast speed, So I got there. There were a bunch of people hovering around. I said, and the building was still up. The building was still there. I couldn't believe it. All these other smaller buildings over here and along the edge of the park and so on, they had collapsed or were in the process of falling apart. But here was this big, tall, 20-story building, and it was intact, and nothing seemed to be terribly wrong. But everybody, and I assume they were all tenants, of course, were just kind of standing around staring. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't go back in the building. So I began yelling my wife's name, and as were other people, and I finally found her. Of course, I was incredibly happy about that, as you can imagine. So I asked her, as we kind of pulled ourselves together there, standing there in front of this incredible apartment building, I said, how come this building that we have in front of us right here didn't fall down? How come our apartment building didn't fall down? They did, and over them, they did too. Whoa, how did we escape that? And she says, I overheard people talking about that very thing. She said, apparently back in the 40s or 50s or something like that, they passed a law that if a building is so tall, I forget what the criterion was, but it's certain height, that it had to have, get ready for this, had to have rollers underneath the foundation, underneath the basement of the entire building. So that when the earth moved, as it certainly did that day, the building itself is designed to move with the earth instead of being overly rigid structure. And so the building would stand up despite the fact that the ground at the very base was moving. Can you believe that? An incredible engineering feat, no doubt about it. I just couldn't believe that. People just can't believe it when I tell them that. How intriguing, how incredible. But here's the thing, really, in life, everything is symbolic, metaphorical, you know how that is. And so I'm thinking and I'm pondering this, and it seems to me that it's speaking to me. I'm seeing this in symbolic terms, and here's what I'm going to ask. Here's what I asked my wife, here's what I asked other people around that time, and I've done it recently, and the man broke into tears after I asked this very question. He was caught up in the story, of course, and I said, what are your rollers? What's at the base of your existence? What enables you to move appropriately, to stick with life, to handle life as it comes at you in a lot of unanticipated ways, right? This is an incredible question. So you begin to think about it, and you say, let's see, so obviously resilience, right? That's the first R word that comes to mind. You've got to be resilient. You have to be able to move and adjust and whatever, right? Just like the building did. And that applies definitely to our lives, doesn't it? And then the next thing is, well, you could call it revitalization, right? You could call it, it's like you have to rebuild yourself. You have to think about yourself in new terms after you've existed and you lived instead of, many, many other people died during this incredible experience. So there's a sense of resilience. Wow, I made it. Incredible. But then you go on maybe a day, two, a month later, whatever it is, and you find yourself waking up saying, well, why did I live and that guy didn't? And Who am I really? And then comes the real kicker right now, right? There's got to be a bridge between the realization that you had, the thing that happened, and the impact on your life and the future of your life. And then on the back end saying, well, I guess I'll pull myself together and get back to work tomorrow, I guess, right? And then in the middle is this bridge. This bridge, you can call it I'm going to call it a reimagining. Kind of awkward, but reimagining. In other words, you got to imagine who are you going to be, right? What are you going to do? What is the concept that you represent? What do you look like? You stand for? What's your direction, basically? What are you going to hold on to when everybody else is flaky and moving in and out and you can't trust anybody? So here they are. Those are the 3 R's that emerge from this incredible, incredible experience, right? So let's go over them real quick. Resilience, right? Revitalization, and then what holds it all together is reimagining. Reimagining. I'm not the person I thought I was. I thought I was over here, but this is an opportunity for me to reimagine who I really am and who I want to be. It's conceptual, but it's foundational. It's fundamental. This is a powerful moment, and I ask you all, I invite you all, if you'd like to hear this presentation again, let me know, because this is do or die. Many, many people I've spoken to about this become very emotional. They don't know what is going to keep them standing when everything else is falling apart. We'll be right back. Thank you. WowBiz Nebraska is brought to you by an organization called Charisma Coaching. They will help you enter the room. They will help you with your career. They will help you understand other people. They will help you muster the confidence to speak in front of a group. And this is extremely important, by the way. If you want to move forward with your career, most people say they do, you have to be able to stand up either spontaneously or in a pre-planned situation, but you have to be able to stand in front of a group, and you have to look good, right? You have to have some apparel that says what you are all about, and even the car that you drive. All of these things need to come together cohesively, and once again, stand for something. Well, that guy is a creative guy. Well, that guy is a button-down professional over there. Whatever it is, this is a family man over here. This guy is driven. This guy is perfectly happy doing his thing at home, very low key. This guy over here paints. This guy over here does not stand for any of those things. He wants people to come to him. Whatever it is, you have to understand these people, because they have a tremendous leverage in whatever organization they're in. They're happy inside and so on. And they stand for a personal brand. And that is absolutely clear, that they project the right values, the right apparel, the right color, the right look, the right sense of confidence, the ability to reach across the table and say hello, the ability to pull a group together spontaneously. All of this, Charisma Coaching will teach you how to do it. It's an intense coaching process. It will be worth it for the rest of your life. Charisma Coaching, thank you. The number one thing that people bring up as they come on the show for WowBiz Nebraska and visit with me about their careers and their future and what brought them forward and so on, and I say, what's the biggest issue? What's the biggest problem? And they almost always say, I don't have enough time, and I'm a little disorganized. I have so much stuff that I have to do, and I can't really get it all done on a regular basis the way I planned, and I don't know. Can you help me, Lynn? Right? I hear this fairly often. And so I'm going to go through here. I got 7 or 8 points, and there's actually a few more of them, but these are the 7 or 8 best points. I'm going to give these to you right now. You may want to take a note. You may want to pull it out and try to capture some of these ideas, because these are basic, and the more successful you are, the busier you are, and pretty soon it becomes overwhelming, and there's no clear way to get out of it. So here we go. Number one, work in 20-minute uninterrupted bursts of energy. This may be, by the way, the most important thing that I'll be mentioning to you today in this portion of WowBiz Nebraska, because I see a lot of people and they just go on and they go on, and then they're not right, and it's not good, and that's dinner time now, and so on. And 20-minute is a great time frame. You can think a lot, you can actually act, experiment. 20 minutes is great. All right, number two there. Keep a list of all open projects. These are projects that are next to your computer keyboard. We've got so many things, because we can do so many things. We have so much information and so many people that we kind of know, and we touch bases with them and so on, and it kind of distracts us. So having just a real straightforward list right next to your keyboard is invaluable. Allows you to just move on, move on, move on. I got that done. All right, that sounds good. All right, so here we go. Number three, excuse me. Quantify the value of time. It drains and positions according to what's really important to you, right? So you have to just reiterate this to yourself. What is really important to me right now? Right now, as I'm sitting at the desk or walking over here across the room, many people would say, well, that'd be family. A family would come first, then probably my job, and then probably some kind of a hobby. And those are probably the three primary things. And then maybe friends, people that I have that I haven't talked to for a while, but they're still considered friends. Maybe that. So be aware of those, all right? Now, here's the thing that is a very metaphysical idea, but it's worked its way into the mainstream of wellness and healthcare and so on, and that has to do with breathing. Breathing. Well, as it says right here, just breathe often and breathe deeply, right? If you're in an office environment or you're talking to somebody and you're breathing shallowly, first of all, it makes you look as if you're anxious or worried about what you're trying to say. And then people will have a tendency to not trust you, or maybe you don't really understand what you're saying. Breathe. Breathe right now as you're watching this program. Relax. That's more important than anything I said in the last five seconds, all right? All right, now, this is really clever. Imagine not accomplishing everything you wanted to accomplish today. What impact does that have on you? How do you react to that general idea? I know this is a tough one for me. For whatever, I get interrupted, or I can't complete this job right now because I don't know as much as I thought I knew, and whatever. So I have to get up and go, maybe do something, that's domestic, or help my wife, whatever. And I had this sense of kind of anxiety, like it was harder than I thought. I didn't think it all through, or I uncovered some new opportunities, some things I could be saying as I write this or whatever, but now I can't do it because I'm doing this. I'm feeding the dogs over here. All right, so be aware of that. Be aware that this is happening. Now, take and make time to share parts of your day with your family. This is a really good idea because it allows them to connect with you and understand you. And in so doing, that's very, that makes you feel better, makes them feel better, because they go like, he's off in Never Land. I don't do that, so I don't know. I don't know what he's up to. And but to be able to say, well, I was working on this, and I got to this part. I was just wondering what you guys would think about that. Yeah. So that's a. Now here's another interesting. Make a list every day. Make a list every day for all the people that you talk to on the phone. I think this is really clever. Obviously, speaking on the phone can be very important, or it can be just a sidebar distraction. It can be any one of those things or anything in between. But it's so interesting because you always have another project in front of you, right? There's always something else I should be doing. and I'm behind on this or that. So you're thinking about these things, and then all these conversations that you've had, maybe with old buddies or somebody that you met recently and you like them, whatever it is, but they've already trailed you, but they're behind you now, see? And it's hard to recapture the intensity and the positivity of that conversation, see? And so you just wonder, do they think that I spaced them off? Did I space them off? I don't know. Did I get spaced off? It's a really interesting question. So knock out the major tasks or elements of the most important tasks first. Now this is probably the number one thing everybody says. You hear this all the time. Let me see a list of what you're working on. You know, what are you doing today? What's the major priority? And if you're a manager, you know, that's a very interesting thing. You look at people and you kind of see what they prioritize, what they think. And then you say, were you able to actually do this list yesterday or the day before? Well, I got distracted. I had some other things. It's a bigger project than I realized right over there, right? So this goes on all the time. And so we live in this kind of this dissatisfied whirlwind of responsibilities and things you did do, but now maybe are not so thrilled about what you did. Maybe it's not as good as what it felt like. I'll have to tell you, this is kind of a personal admission, so to speak, is that when I get started on a project, typically I read several articles, magazines, books, and pick up bits and pieces of things that are kind of relevant to the project I'm going to be working on. For instance, working on the notion of Nebraska Now. Some of you realize that I'm the prime mover on Nebraska. We like Nebraska Now because it implies action and so on, but it also suggests that we're going to be doing something special, something different here in the state of Nebraska. Think about that. We're talking about a lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of organizational groups, a lot of communities. Some of them are upbeat, some are receptive. Tell me what you're thinking. A lot of people say, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're doing our own thing over here. And so you have to anticipate all those things, or maybe don't resist at all. Maybe you say, okay, good, I'm going to let it lie there. Maybe you will see the purpose of it tomorrow, and it'll seem more attractive to you at that time. So how to get people to see you, read your material, look at your videos, talk to your friends or associates, ask them what do they think about you and where you're going and so on. It's just a very exciting but also very complex, multifaceted thing. So when I get into stuff, I was starting that earlier, and I'm doing something, I'll call it creative for the lack of a better word. There are other words that are probably better. But when I get into it, now I realize that I don't want to miss this. So I've got to find a word or a phrase to work it in up here. And then what about the headline? What about the top? What about the very first thing that people are going to see? What's it going to be? I'll go back to the headline 3, 4, 5 times, rewrite it, because I know that if people just go, I don't know, that's discouraging, right? So anyway, and let me continue on now as we wrap up. Limit email time and shut down the email software so as not to be tempted to read them. In other words, check out your email list and see who's saying what. And if you have to respond to 1 or 2 or 3 of them, fine. But don't get sucked into them too deeply, because they'll totally eat up all your, because then you have to respond, right? But you don't want to overlook some powerful ideas. Somebody's sending you maybe a 5 or 6 page document with some fundamental stuff about your industry. This is the main thing that people are talking about. If you want to get somebody's attention, or you want to have a relevant conversation, don't start talking about their company right away. Start talking about their industry. What's happening in your industry? I saw this and that, and it seems like people are going through this. There was an alliance, some kind of alliance. What are you guys seeing from your perspective? What's it like to be in your industry now? And what's the future going to be in your industry other than more AI? By the way, that's the easy answer to every single question like that. Well, we're probably going to learn more about programming AI, and everybody's going to have to use it, blah, 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 whatever it is. But It's very interesting to see how people manage their time, identify their priorities, get other people to agree or want to be involved with them or help them, or even give them some input on the fly. If somebody says, hey, do you like this here? How is that? What do you think about that? I like it real well, but I don't, that one phrase, I don't like that phrase, that word, I just didn't. Okay, good, I'll change that, right? Do you have relationships like that with your workers around you, people around you that you work with? Let's hope so, because that will help you be excellent, right? Not mediocre, not just pretty good. Well, we got it done. We're going to move on to the next thing. Apply this idea also to strategic planning. So many organizations don't have a strategic plan, and they're not based upon customer feedback. Anyway, we've had a great time here at WowBiz Nebraska. Hope all this helps you move forward tomorrow in your basic business, and think about, how do you stand up? How do you raise yourself up? How do you become resilient, ladies and gentlemen? We'll see you next time on WowBiz Nebraska. Thank you.